in my same readings about the founding and such, there was so much discussion about the establishment of public schools, and that they
Mhm.
called for the establishment of public schools in order to create citizens who were virtuous and moral and educated in republicanism, in order to cherish it as a religion of the political religion, exceptional American patriotism. Ronald Reagan had a version of Lincoln's political religion, I believe, as well. And so they wanted to start schools to basically, using a negative, indoctrinate people into believing that our American system was the best system, to have to cherish it, to praise it, to damn near worship it, and advance it with people that were capable of functioning within the system. I tweeted about that too, and I got all these people saying, "No, it was the Rothschilds. No, it was the Industrial Revolution. No, they wanted to just make it so that you could follow a schedule or be a good worker." No,
No.
that's crap, right? So let's talk about the founders and the ideas of public education, and then I want to segue this into state of education today and your efforts in homeschooling.
Well, Washington talked at length or wrote at length about public education. And again, one of the keys to discussing history is you need to put things in the context of the day, which is the left always likes to yank things out of the context of the day. American slavery. Well, everybody had slavery. I mean, we were doing what everybody. Why aren't you criticizing them? We all did the same thing. Everybody's doing the same thing. So when you look at public education today, it's critical to understand all of the founders were pretty much self-educated. They may have had a tutor someplace. They may have gone to a college, but much of their early education was family education. They were self-educated, and they wanted that benefit that they got to be spread to everyone. It was one of the elements that the Claremont people hate to talk about, which was the equality of the American Revolution, but they wanted everyone to have those same advantages. And we have records of boys going to college, to Yale and Harvard at 8 years old, 9 years old. You know, that they would, okay, we've taught you everything we know at home. That's our homeschooling for the day. Off to Harvard with you. And it's also interesting to note that a large number of the founders had gone to divinity school. So again, their notion of what was involved in a public education was a way to better your life through knowledge of the things that the founders had already received, and they wanted to share that, and B, a reaffirmation, as you put it, of the greatness of this nation and the greatness of God, and how all these things fit together.
I wonder what they would say about the state of education today. These arguments that we get today about CRT in schools, and people pushing back, the left pushing back. How's the government going to get involved in what we're teaching in public schools? And my brain just wants to explode. I'm like, hello, it's a public school paid for with public money, run by the government. We decide who's in the government. The government runs the schools. How else are we going to decide what is being taught in the schools by using the government to explain it? You may not know this, but I have 10 years working in charter schools. I was executive director of a number of different charter schools, turned around a few in DC, some of the worst performing schools in the city. And so I understand the power of education, the value of education, and the current state of affairs in education, which is absolutely pathetic, to say the least. In the DMV area here, Virginia, Maryland, and DC, all around us, there's these ideas of stripping away advanced math, keeping everybody in the same place, not allowing for exceptional students to make themselves known and be educated, given extra resources, etc. Fostering gifted and talented sounds like a whole racist scheme and everything at this point now to these folks. What is your take on the current state of affairs in public education? What are you doing in terms of homeschooling? Because I know this is a big thing for you, something that you're invested in and passionate about. And use this as a chance to talk about your homeschooling efforts too, as well, please.
Well, when you mention the Maryland area, I recall this story not too long ago about how I think it was 50% of Maryland high schoolers couldn't pass a basic math proficiency test. And I am less concerned. I am concerned, but I am less concerned that exceptional students aren't getting the challenges they need to succeed and more than succeed than I am that there are fundamental attacks going on against the very essence of what constitutes education, namely that math itself is racist, that the scientific method, which is one of the reasons, as Victor Davis Hanson said, why didn't the Zulus invade England rather than the English invading Zululand? Scientific revolution. Well, that's got to be racist too, because only a small group of people, namely the Western Europeans and the Americans, had that for a very, very, very long time. Why? Goes back to the four pillars. These kinds of things inform educational, intellectual curiosity and growth, and in a foundational way that you can build on, but the only way that you can advance is to accept what people before you said and say, okay, that's been proven as a fact, now we're going to move on. If you say from the outset, well, no, all math is racist, you will never have anyone literally get out of a cave, and that's what they want. They want absolute ignorance, total docility, and complete subjugation to the government. So I'm not very.
Can I interrupt you there? You just said subordination to the government.
Yeah.
Now, what is the difference there between that and fostering a reverence for our form of government?
It would come down to what kind of values are you teaching? And if you're teaching a reverence for our form of government, you're inherently teaching a reverence for the idea that there are facts, there are things that are called facts. Just because they were stated or invented or postulated by white males doesn't make them any less facts. They're still facts. So that's the difference. And it always comes down to that is you can't say we're going to have no government, as the libertarians want to say. You're going to have to make a choice on what government you have. And as I tell parents in these homeschool meetings, I'm not objective. There's no such thing as an objective historian. The mere acceptance of this fact over that fact means you've made a value judgment. And to me, the key is that of significance. What has affected the largest number of people over the largest period of time? And that is what constitutes significance in my view. So you are necessarily going to be talking about kings and queens, industrial leaders, not Howard Zinn's man on the shop floor, because as I like to say, all of Carnegie's employees put together didn't make the same impact on the world that Andrew Carnegie himself did.
Right. So what do we do with this then? What do we do with this idea that the government-sponsored education system in most parts of the United States, certainly anybody taking federal dollars, certainly most, if not all, except for a handful of colleges and universities, are now teaching, not only are they not teaching a reverence for our Republican, not Democratic, our Republican form of government as the founders intended when they, suggested in some states, compelled in other states to create public schools. What do we do about that, sir?
Well, I think ultimately we've got to do away with most public education except for those who absolutely cannot afford to go to a private school, a charter school, or be homeschooled. And there will be those people, and they are entitled to the very best kind of education we can give them, not the worst kind. But I certainly would like to see a majority of Americans homeschooled again, and those who can't be homeschooled going to charter schools. Arizona here, where I am, has a huge charter school structure. I mean, within 7 miles of me going up to the freeway, I see 3 major charter schools. So it's a very big deal here. Homeschooling is absolutely exploding. when I started Wild World of History, which is a history homeschool curriculum back in 2019, I think there were about 5 million homeschoolers. Today, the number is at least 10 million. And this comes from interviews with the two leading homeschool convention sponsors. One of those two, the guy who runs Teach Them Diligently, a guy named David Nunnery, he thinks the number is closer to 20 million. And he says one of the reasons is it's very difficult to get data on homeschoolers. By nature, they don't want to tell the government what they're doing. But also, he argues that a lot of homeschooling is 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Maybe they will be taking some classes at a public school or some athletic events, but they won't be fully engaged in the public school itself.
So what have you done? What is your project like? What is your work like in this area? How can people who are interested in homeschooling be helped out by you?
Well, I created a full U.S. and a full world history curriculum. The U.S. is based on Patriots history of the United States, 22 units. I mean, everything that I learned in education school, learning objectives. I walk you right through Patriots history of the United States. We have a separate track for those who are intending to take the AP test and test out of college history with the AP test. We have activities, tests, and then you have me teaching all of Patriots history of the United States in 22 videos, about 45 minutes to an hour each. World history, same basic structure, except 15 units and 15 videos. So you're going to get the best U.S. history book out there, Patriots History of the United States, and you're going to get America's history teacher teaching you the book.
Perfect. That's excellent branding, by the way. And congratulations on that. Guys, if you're interested, if you're homeschooling, if you're thinking about homeschooling, if you want to just augment or replace or battle whatever it is your kids are getting at school, then I suggest you check out Larry's programs.